Hey, it's Ukallii, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about chapter 13 of my Harry Potter rewrite fanfiction. I'd like to start off by saying I'm sorry for the delay. I know that I haven't posted in a week. It's because I've had the flu recently. I lost my voice, so I couldn't record. But I'm back, and we're finally moving into September of this fanfiction, so let's get into it. This chapter starts off with the two visions that Harry had. Now, originally in the previous version of this fanfiction, the visit to Potter Manor, and therefore these two visions, happened before anything else happened. It was like the first thing that happened in Shehu. That felt weird to me, so I had the rejuvenation of the Lee estate happen first, and then they went to the Potter Manor while they're still waiting for Gong Gong to arrive. So that is kind of the pacing situation for this chapter and why I moved it. Now, in this first vision, we see Lily and James. This is the first time that Harry's had a vision of the two of them kind of alone as an established couple, not quite engaged yet, but still as an established couple in their later years. And the reason why he's having this particular vision first is because it's Lily's first experience of Druid's Grove and of the Potter Manor, which is what Harry's going through. Now, Harry's already been to Druid's Grove, so that part's not quite there, but her first experience with the Potter Manor does happen in this vision, so that's why I had it happen here. Also, Lily meets James's parents, and Wen makes her appearance. We've already met Fleamont in a previous vision, but now we're meeting Anne Wen. She uses some Chinese just to kind of honorifics and things like that, and she's kind of teasing James about the fact that Lily's wearing one of his hairpins, which is, you know, she takes it as a signifier initially that they're engaged, but James corrects her that they're not engaged, it was just a courtship gift. But that's definitely, it's close there, and I wanted to include this moment to kind of hint that that is a theme that I would like to keep going in, well, not a theme, but a trope, I guess you could say, a tradition that I'd like to keep going in this fanfiction, of the hairpin being really a signifier of relationships in the Chinese magical community. Harry kind of comes out of the vision. He sees the state of the manor. It's badly deteriorated. It has, you know, been kind of left on its own. Bamboo has taken over the garden, and it's just kind of startling to him after you know, seeing this vision image of the garden in its manor in its prime, and then seeing this deteriorated form. It really is, it kind of brings to light to him just how badly things went after those, you know, happy moments. That then triggers the next vision, which is James leaving the manor and, you know, kind of setting it on its course to that deterioration. And we see in this moment, I confirmed again that I have changed the occupations of James and Lily. In the books, J.K. Rowling never actually says what Lily did for a living. As far as we can tell, she was like a housewife, and James was an Auror. I hate that. I think it's super tropey. I think it's super, like, almost misogynistic, to be honest. Like, Lily's presented in the books as being this badass witch. Why would she be a housewife? Like, it doesn't make sense. So what I've done is I've actually flipped that. I've had Lily be the Auror, and I've made James be the healer. He's carrying on the family tradition. And so it's a bit of a gender role switch for the two of them, of having her being kind of the warrior, the bread maker, and him being the softer element of the relationship. Aunt Mei Ling confirms that some of the books of the Potter Manor were actually stored underneath the Lee estate. We've already been to that library, so that's just confirming that that's what those books are. There's some of the Potter Manor books, and the rest of the Potter Manor books were taken to the vault in Edinburgh. So that's kind of the situation of those books. I wanted to establish where those books were in this book, because that's going to come into play in the next book, in a new plotline that I've added to the second book. They approach the Potter Manor, and they can't open the doors. Like, the doors are sealed. So Harry climbs up to a balcony and is just going to go downstairs and open the door, but the stairs have been destroyed, so he can't do that, and this initiates a kind of chase sequence. Part of the reason for this was to give the reader kind of an insight as to just how bad the Potter Manor really is, you know, how badly deteriorated it's become, and just how much of a hive of magical creatures it has become. We see lots of magical creatures mentioned here. Of course, Harry doesn't know what any of these things are, but I did at one point. I did not write it down, so I don't actually have a list of what these magical creatures are. I think I used to, but I've lost it in the year hiatus, so I'm not sure what all these magical creatures are, but I did have a list. I actually knew exactly what they were. I picked them out from the Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them book, and the unofficial Harry Potter bestiary as well. So that was a thing. It's no longer a thing, obviously, but I wasn't random about the creatures. I actually picked out the creatures specifically for these scenes. I don't remember what they are. I'm sorry. This scene also gives you an insight as to how big Potter Manor is. It's quite large. In one of my planning videos, if you'd like to go back and watch it, I actually give you the layout of the Potter Manor. I actually have a floor plan so you can go and see it. And you can kind of trace Harry's passage throughout the manor on that floor plan video if you would like to. But I did actually use that floor plan for this chase sequence, and it is to kind of give you an insight as to how big Potter Manor is, how much of a hive it's become, how deteriorated it's become, to really give you a clue of just how much work it's going to be to pick this up, so that the reader doesn't have this expectation that, like, by the next book they're going to be living there. Like, no. Potter Manor's in really bad shape, and it's going to take a few books to get it back up and running. So that's the point of this chase sequence. It's also to show that Harry's sass is back. He's like, man, can't you guys just leave me alone? He runs for it. He's very good at running. He's a very fast runner. And there's a reason for that, which you're going to learn later in the book. He's chased by a very old Hebridean black dragon. This is a dragon that's native to Scotland. It's a very old dragon. This guy's real old. So he kind of gives up on the chase really quickly, but he destroys the greenhouse and the dining room in the process, doing even more damage to the manor. So now like half the manor's destroyed at this point. That's something that's going to have to be dealt with later on. Harry is saved by some hippogriffs and flying horses. They drop him off at the Selwyn house. So that's where Rose has been hanging out for this journey. So they drop him off there, and whenever he lands, he's not hurt, but he's exhausted, so he lays down while Remus checks him over and makes sure he's okay, and as he's laying there, he gets bit by a snake, and the snake kind of chastises him. He says, "You upset the Drake, brat." And he yells at him and basically says that, you know, you abandoned us, the Potters abandoned us, we're all angry with you. And this is a way for the snake to really represent the magical creatures of the area of the Potter estate, to show that they're not happy with Harry for his family leaving. This is something he's kind of slowly winning them over. You see this with the wand scene in the previous chapter. He's kind of slowly winning them all over. And this will be a subplot with the Potter Manor refreshment, Potter Manor reconstruction, as the books go on, is him kind of winning over the magical creatures of the area. Because of this conversation, Remus and Aunt Mayling realize that Harry is a Parseltongue, and they talk to him about Parseltongue. I'm not really sure how you say it, to be honest. But they talk to him about it and explain that, you know, he has to have gotten it from somewhere. There has to be a reason why he has this ability. And there's a little bit of talk about where he could have gotten it from. Sean thinks that he might have gotten it from Lily. Remus doesn't think so, because Lily was a Muggleborn, even though there's this theory that's talked about later that Muggleborns descend from squibs. He's just not sure. Remus doesn't think that he got it from Lily, because there doesn't seem to be any clue of that in Lily's family. And Harry suggests that James may not have been a Parseltongue. He may not have had that ability, but maybe Anne Wen did and didn't tell anyone. Maybe it was a secret. So it's kind of hinted here that perhaps he got it from the Wen family. Maybe something else that he inherited from them. This is gonna stay up in the air on purpose. I'm leaving it up in the air on purpose here, so that I can deal with the whole Parseltongue plotline later, but it is introduced in the very first book with the zoo incident, and then it's like never talked about again until the second book brings it up again. I think that may have been why J.K. Rowling had the second book go next instead of the third book. I think it makes more sense for the third book to go next, which is why I'm doing that. But I am going to deal with the Parseltongue. I just want to bring it up here again. It was in the beginning with the snake in the zoo, and now it's here again. It's going to be kind of like peppered throughout the story until we get to the Chamber of Secrets plotline. So, but I did want to reintroduce it here because Remus, whenever they first arrive at the lake, he says the town is named Shehu because it's a snake-filled lake. Like, it was already introduced. It was already there. So I wanted to have him have some interactions with snakes in the first book and in the second book before we get to the Chamber of Secrets plotline for what will be the third book in this rewrite. Harry suggests that they ask Lord Malfoy. Remus is completely opposed to this. He does not want the Malfoys to know that Harry is a Parseltongue for his own safety, Parselmouth for his own safety. He's really cautious about it. But Harry makes an argument that, you know, just because Lucius Malfoy made mistakes doesn't mean that his son or his father will be similarly dubious in their morals. So he wants to trust Draco. He wants to trust everyone, really, but Remus is still very, very cautious about the possible Death Eater connections with the Malfoy family, so he doesn't want Lord Malfoy to know. At this point, Lord Malfoy does not know about the Parseltongue. I'm thinking about having that kind of come up again, whether or not to tell him during the winter break, but I haven't gotten there yet, so I don't know. That's not been decided. After that, Zhang and Elizabeth come running in to basically fawn over Harry. Draco's there. He's already exhausted from dealing with these freaking girls. This is going to be a continuous thing for him. Like, he's the one who has to deal with these girls because Harry won't. It just takes up all of his time. And I talked about this in the previous video about how he had planned to teach Harry, like, pureblood customs and stuff, but his time was just taken up so much by these girls. So I want to have these little scenes throughout the, you know, this arc, the Shehu arc, of Draco just constantly having to deal with these freaking girls, because that is the reason why he didn't teach Harry the things that he needed to know, which is an important part to their development in their friendship later on in this book. Next is the arrival of Gong Gong. It's raining, it's pouring down raining whenever he arrives, and his ship arrives at the lake, which Harry's very confused about because there's no inland river to this lake. This is a fresh lake, fresh off the mountain, so it doesn't make sense to him how this boat came, but whenever the boat arrives, he realizes how. It's kind of a submarine, basically. The idea that I got from this is actually this old picture that I found, I'll try to find it again, of a Korean warship that kind of looks like looks like a turtle. It kind of looks like a submarine and looks like it could have submerged, and I just love the idea of the magical community actually doing that and using it as this kind of submersible ship. Gong Gong is introduced, Grandfather Li, as Harry, you know, as he said in the narration, he's called Grandfather Li, but Harry and Mei Ling both call him Gong Gong. So Gong Gong arrives, and he immediately basically says, we're gonna adopt Rose. The second he meets her, he's like, okay, well, you've been taking care of Harry while I haven't been because I've been on the other side of the planet, so we're gonna adopt you and we're gonna take you in. This is a really important moment for Rose because it's a moment where the Li family really becomes her adoptive family, and Aunt Mei Ling becomes her adoptive mother. So in this moment, she gains a new family, and it becomes really important for her development as a character in later chapters, which we will see in later chapters as well. That development actually brought to the forefront and brought to the focus, because there's a chapter coming up that's actually from Rose's perspective that talks about that a bit. So that's why this moment is in here. It's important. It's about it really showcases that relationship, and I also needed this whole Gong Gong scene to happen before the first full moon after arriving in Shehu, so that Gong Gong is there, Mei Ling is there, the whole clan is there with Harry when Remus has to leave for reasons that you guys as fans know. In the next moment, Gong Gong and Harry are having a conversation, kind of an argument. Harry doesn't like being in the center of attention. He doesn't like everyone paying him tribute and treating him like he's part of this family that he didn't even know he had until a month ago. So he's hesitant to take that place as kind of the heir of the family, but Gong Gong insists that he does, and basically says, you'll get used to it, don't worry. Harry's not so confident, but, you know, Remus and Mei Ling were both encouraging him. It'll be okay, you'll get used to it, it'll be alright. Harry kind of defends Draco because Remus is still a bit stuffy about him. Harry says that they're friends and that Draco wants to be a healer one day, and that is kind of a connection between them at their friendship. Grandfather Lee asks Remus about Draco's father, about his parents, and Remus expresses his concerns, but Gong Gong agrees with Harry. Just because the previous generation was bad doesn't mean that the current generation will be bad, or the generation before that. So he's defending Harry's decision to befriend Draco. We also see a little bit of Harry's wisdom in this scene with his wordplay. Gong Gong is using these Chinese proverbs. Remus is just kind of refuting that with some Western proverbs as well as some Chinese proverbs. And Harry kind of makes up his own proverb because he doesn't know all these proverbs, so he kind of makes one up himself in order to make his argument as well. And Gong Gong praises him for his natural wisdom in that matter. And then the introduction of Zhu Shifu, who is the tutor from Shanghai that Gong Gong brought along with him to teach Harry and keep up with his academics so that Remus doesn't have to, so that Remus can focus on the manor now that that is a primary concern. There's a description here of some of the lessons that Zhu Shifu is giving. They are learning horseback riding after breakfast. Rose is already good at this. Harry is not because he's shy and he's worried about the horse. Then they learn some basic, like, pre-martial arts learning. It's I hope I'm saying this right, Baguazhong, which is focused on like breathing techniques. It's like the basics before you get to even stretching or anything like that. So learning that and a bit of anatomy just to learn kind of how the body works so that they can focus on parts of the body properly during martial arts training. For the more academically oriented classes, Zhu Shifu is teaching Irish, Scottish, Chinese, and English lessons about all kinds of things about the industry of the village, things about agriculture, things about like raising animals, animal shepherdry that's going on in the village, teaching him basically like the things he needs to know as the heir of the estate, as well as cultural things like myths and stories and folklore and language and all kinds of other things, fashion. These are all things that Harry is learning in order to really take his place as the heir of the family. So it's not necessarily that these are academic lessons, it's more like this is what you would have learned if you'd grown up here, if you'd grown up with this. So they're kind of trying to get him caught up on those things. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a really long time for him to get caught up. He's not going to really come into his own and have an acknowledged position as the heir of the family for a little while, but for right now they're just worried about getting him caught up on the basics so that he doesn't embarrass himself and therefore embarrass the family. So after that, we get a brand new scene. This new scene is the Ghost Festival. Now, in the previous version, there was the Mid-Autumn Festival. That was the wrong festival. I was wrong about the timing. So I've changed that to the Ghost Festival here. There's a description about the Ghost King. I spent like a whole day doing research on just this festival to write this scene, so I hope I did it justice, but if I did screw it up, please let me know. If anyone is knowledgeable about Chinese culture and can just tell me that I screwed this up, please tell me. But I did some work into like what the Ghost King is, what the Ghost Festival is, and Draco gets worried that ghosts are going to come after his family because of all the people they've pissed off in the future. And Harry kind of dismisses of it. He's kind of like, whatever, this is ridiculous. He doesn't really believe yet. But then the more that Harry thinks about it, the more that he worries about Privet Drive, and the more he worries about the Death Eaters and everything like that, the more it kind of formates in his mind that, wait, maybe this isn't ridiculous. What if Voldemort's spirit is still out there? And then at the end of this chapter, we get this scene. It's kind of recycled. It's from the previous version. In the previous version, this was the last scene of the Shehu arc, and then it ends really abruptly and kicks off with Hermione going to Hogwarts. And it was really awkward. I didn't like that at all. So I've repurposed this scene here much earlier. Harry has this kind of vision of the night that his parents died. It's not really a vision, it's like a phantom of a vision, and he sees a figure that may or may not have made him faint. It's not really clear in this chapter, and I left it ambiguous, but don't worry, unlike the previous version, we're actually going to pick up right after this with the next chapter to talk about what this scene meant and what actually happened during this scene. So that will be in the next video. That's it for today. Thank you for your patience over the past week. I'm exhausted just recording this video, so I'm not quite back, but don't worry, the next video will be in the next few days, about 3 days, probably Thursday. I will see you guys next time with chapter 14, and I hope you enjoyed the new scenes in this chapter. Bye!